Some people dream of escaping the noise of the modern world, but Eustace Conway actually did it. And in a way that almost sounds like a legend whispered around a campfire, a man who traded concrete for open skies, who chose the whisper of the wind over the buzz of machines, who lived closer to nature than anyone else you know, and yet the way he did it leaves you asking how a person could survive like that for so long, what he had to give up, and what secrets he found in the quiet of the forest. Because Eustace was not just living in the wild, he was breathing it in, shaping his life around it as if it were an unbreakable promise. Every sunrise marking another day where he built his own shelter, hunted his own food, and wore clothes that seemed to belong to another century. But behind this peaceful image, there was always the question of why he chose this path in the first place, and whether it was the result of a dream, a loss, or something even deeper that he never told the cameras. And the more you think about it, the more you realize that while most people would see nature as a weekend escape, Eustace made it his only home, a place where every step had to be earned and every meal had to be found. And you wonder if that kind of life brings a sense of freedom or a constant battle against the elements. Because the truth is, living closer to nature than anyone else sounds beautiful, but it also means facing storms without a roof of steel, winters without central heating, and nights where the sound of animals moving in the dark reminds you that you are just another creature in their world. And yet for Eustace, this was not just survival, it was the life he wanted, the life that made him feel alive in a way no city ever could. And maybe that is what draws people to his story, the feeling that he discovered something we have all lost, that he holds a key to a simpler, more honest way of living. But then comes the thought that maybe this life also hides moments he wished no one would see, moments of doubt, fear, or heartbreak that even the wild could not heal. And it makes you want to know what those moments were, and whether they had anything to do with the tragedy that would one day change his life forever. His unbelievable journey that captured the world's attention began long before cameras followed him through the trees, long before people knew his name. And it is the kind of story that makes you wonder how a single person could push himself so far. Because Eustace Conway was not born into luxury or given a map to success, he carved his path with his own two hands, each step taking him deeper into a life that few would dare to live. And as you imagine him walking barefoot through rough ground, crossing rivers, building homes from logs, and riding horses across miles of open land, you start to feel that there must have been something inside him that could never be satisfied with ordinary life, something that needed to test limits over and over again. And the more he proved himself against the challenges of the wild, the more people began to talk about him, to follow his story, and to wonder how much farther he could go. Because his journey was not about chasing fame, it was about chasing a dream that most people would call impossible. And yet here he was living it, turning every sunrise into another chapter of survival and every sunset into a victory. And still, you can't help but think about the moments in between, the ones we didn't see on television, when exhaustion must have set in, when food ran low, when the cold bit at his skin, and you wonder if in those moments he ever thought about giving up. But if he did, he never showed it. And that only made his journey seem even more incredible, as if he had found a strength that went beyond the human body, something deeper, something unshakable. And maybe that is why the world could not look away, because in Eustace's life there was no script, no comfort, no shortcuts, only the raw truth of what it means to live fully. And even though we watched him succeed in ways that amazed us, there was always a shadow in the background, the quiet knowledge that such a path cannot go on forever without a price, and that one day, the same journey that made him unforgettable might also lead him to a moment that would break him in a way no one expected, a moment that would remind us that even the strongest among us are still human. The moment everything changed in a way no one expected came like a sudden storm on a clear day, the kind that gives no warning and leaves everything feeling different, and for a man like Eustace Conway, who had faced countless dangers in the wild, you would think nothing could shake him. But this was not a test of building a shelter before dark or surviving a freezing night. This was something deeper, something that reached past his skills and straight into his heart. And while most people saw him as the man who could handle anything, this moment proved that even he could be caught off guard. And the strangest part is that no one really saw it coming. Not his friends, not his fans, maybe not even Eustace himself. And that is what makes it so haunting, because it makes you wonder what exactly happened in that quiet space between one day and the next. What kind of news or event could turn a life built on strength and independence into something heavy and uncertain? And as you picture him standing in the woods, hearing or seeing something that made his world tilt, you can almost feel that silence that follows a blow you never saw coming. The way the air feels heavier, the way your mind tries to make sense of it. And for a man whose life was built around steady routines of chopping wood, tending animals, and walking the land, this was the kind of change that could not be solved with hard work alone. It was the kind of moment that stays with you, shadowing every step you take after it. And the more you think about it, the more you want to know the details. Was it a personal loss? Was it a betrayal? Was it a sudden accident that no one could have stopped? Or was it something that had been building quietly for years until it finally broke? And the truth is, this moment marked a turning point, a before and after in his story. And though people still saw him on the outside as the same strong man living close to nature, inside there may have been a weight that changed how he saw everything. And that is the part we are left wondering about, because the wild can take a lot from you, but sometimes life itself takes something you cannot get back. And when it happens, it does not matter how tough you are. The world will never feel quite the same again. A hidden struggle he carried deep inside the wilderness was something no one could see when they looked at Eustace Conway from the outside, because all they saw was a strong, capable man living the life most people could only dream about. But the truth is, even in the most beautiful places, pain can hide like a shadow that never goes away. And for someone like Eustace, who spent his days working the land, hunting, and surviving under the open sky, it was easy to believe he had left the problems of the modern world behind. Yet there are some battles you cannot walk away from. Battles that follow you no matter how far you go, and the more you think about it, the more you wonder what kind of burden could weigh on a man who seemed to have everything he wanted. Maybe it was a loss that still echoed in his heart. Maybe it was the pressure of keeping his way of life alive when the world around him was changing so fast. Or maybe it was something even deeper, something he never spoke about to anyone. And that is where the mystery begins. Because how do you fight something you cannot touch or see? Something that sits quietly inside you even while you smile for the cameras. And the longer you keep it to yourself, the heavier it gets, until even the sound of the wind in the trees cannot drown it out. And perhaps that is why certain moments in his life felt different. Why his eyes sometimes carried a faraway look as if he were lost in thoughts too heavy to share. And this struggle, whatever it was, became part of his story even if no one knew the full truth. Because it shaped his days and his choices, making every victory a little harder to win, and every defeat cut a little deeper. And it makes you wonder if the wilderness was truly his escape, or if it was simply the quiet place he chose to carry this hidden pain, far from the eyes of the world, but not far enough to make it disappear. And maybe that is the most human part of his journey, the reminder that no matter how strong we look on the outside, there can still be storms inside us that no one else can see. The tragedy that left fans wondering how he could ever move on was the kind of moment that feels almost impossible to imagine, because Eustace Conway had always been seen as a man who could survive anything, a man who could face storms, hunger, and danger with steady hands and a calm mind. But this was different. This was not just about surviving the wild. This was about facing a loss so deep it cut through every layer of strength he had built over a lifetime. And when news of it reached the people who admired him, it sent a shock that made them stop and ask how someone like Eustace could possibly keep going after something like this. Because no matter how much you prepare for life's challenges, there are some blows that no skill or experience can shield you from, and this was one of them. A moment where the wilderness around him, usually his place of comfort, must have felt colder and emptier than ever before. and the silence that followed must have been the hardest thing to bear. And yet the details of what he truly felt in those days were never fully told, leaving everyone to wonder what thoughts went through his mind when he woke up in the morning and realized nothing would ever be the same. And you can imagine him walking the same familiar trails, chopping the same wood, feeding the same animals, but doing it all with a weight in his heart that would not lift. And maybe that is what made this tragedy so hard for his fans to accept, because it showed that even a man who seemed unshakable could be broken in ways we will never fully see. And the mystery of how he carried on, whether through sheer will, through the small comforts of his routines, or through the quiet hope that time might ease the pain, is something that still lingers in the minds of those who followed his story. And it leaves you with the question of whether true healing is even possible after such a loss, or if you simply learn to live alongside the emptiness, carrying it with you through every season, just as Eustace has had to do since that day.